Welcome to the One Stiletto in the Grave podcast with your hosts, Sonny Ormond and Jane James.
Well, hello everyone. It's that festive time of year again. Oh, no it isn't. Oh, yes it is. We talk pantos and parties, Santas and sleighs, carols and choirs. Ho, ho, ho. All things Christmassy. It's a cracker of a show. Here's Janie.
Hello, it's that time of year again, isn't it? The Ambridge Christmas show. There have been a few of those over the years, haven't there, Sonny?
Oh, they certainly have. But normally it's the pantomime, isn't it? Linda Snell's famous pantomimes. Although there have been over the years shows as well, just ordinary shows.
Yeah.
This year it seems that it's the choirs, doesn't it? It's the battle of the choirs, it seems, at the moment in Ambridge.
We don't know yet, do we? We are recording this on Friday, the something or other, just the Friday before Christmas. And we don't know whether the two choirs will murder each other. No. We just don't know, do we?
We have no idea at all. I mean, I know the last listen I had, George wanted to get out of the choir, so yes. no idea what will be happening. But yes, it's a bit of a move away from the Christmas shows. I mean, last year it was, of course. Excuse me, listeners, a frog in the throat. It was I did the nativity play because it was.
It's the mystery plays, wasn't it?
It was the mystery plays, and I was actually in the nativity play.
Yeah.
Or Lillian was in the nativity play, of course. She was playing Angel Gabriel, which I thought was interesting casting. But and I think I also played Herod's servant as well, which was quite an interesting double.
Yeah.
But yes, over the years, I've been in quite a few. I mean, I was in Mother Goose. I played the Good Fairy in Mother Goose. Again, interesting casting. The one I remember particularly was Snow White. This was years and years ago. And I played the Mirror. Or Lillian played the Mirror, the voice of the Mirror. And she was caught smoking behind the flat on stage as she was waiting for her cue. I do remember that. It was very, very funny.
Oh, I'm sure Linda Snell had something to say about that.
She certainly did. Yes, there was a bit of a to-do about all that. And of course, Lillian couldn't understand, why she shouldn't be smoking. She was bored stiff. She probably had a gin in her hand as well, I would imagine, at the same time. And we did Calendar Girls.
You did. That was delightful, I thought. And again, not what we normally think of as a Christmas show, but that was very enjoyable.
It was enjoyable.
But this year, Linda is not involved in the choirs, is she? And I thought it was a bylaw in Ambridge that nobody was allowed to put on a Christmas production without Linda Snell being involved. So I'm confident expecting Harrison to turn up and close the whole thing down before it starts.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know what's going to be happening and where they're going to be doing this. On the green, where's it all supposed to be happening?
I don't know. It's a good question. The other thing I never know about the shows in Ambridge is who is the audience, because every bugger is in it. So there's nobody left to watch it unless they kind of push the people, the old folk from the Laurels who don't have any choice in it, sort of into the village hall or wherever it might be, and subject them to this as some sort of medieval torture. Indeed. I don't know, but everybody's in it.
Yeah, I know. They're bussed in from different areas of Borsetshire, clearly.
Do you think?
Yeah, like shouting and screaming, no, we do not want another Ambridge pantomime. Yeah, I think so. I think that's what's happening. Or maybe...
wouldn't it? That, somebody turns up and goes, would you like to go to the Ambridge pantomime?
Yes,
no, we wouldn't. Oh, yes, you would.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's very, very good. Yes, indeed. So, you're very right. Yes, I think it is all the other folk of Borsetshire who are bussed in, clearly, and they are forced by Linda Snell. Their arms are twisted to come to the pantomime.
Yeah.
Although, as we say, this year the choirs.
Bless them. And this year, of course, there's been a shock horror nativity play at the school, hasn't there?
I know.
So it was a shock to me that there is a school, because I've no idea where it is.
Yes, that's true. That's very true. And of course, Rosie, little Rosie Pip's daughter, and is playing. Well, she was playing a spider wasn't she?
Yes,
Very
she was.
successfully, apparently. She was brilliant. I'm quite interested to know what she was doing in the stable. Maybe she was weaving some sort of web over Jesus to protect him from the flies from the cows. I don't know what her role was quite.
I've no idea. In the readings that I have done, not that I'm a biblical scholar, Sonny, by any means, but I don't recall mention of spiders in the Christmas story. I no reason why they shouldn't have been there, I suppose.
No,
But
no.
were there mosquitoes too?
Well, I don't know. There possibly could.
Quite
And
confused.
indeed, and apparently, little Rose's performance was likened to being a tarantula, I understand, as opposed to
Oh,
your
I
common or
see.
garden spider. So
Ah,
she sounds like she was particularly physically active, it seems to me.
yeah.
If she was a tarantula, maybe they all fled when they saw the spider.
Perhaps they
Fear!
did.
Shepherds fleeing! Kings fleeing!
Perhaps they did. Perhaps they did. I was also
Mm.
terribly impressed that our mother had managed to just mentioned airily, I think, that she'd not made the costume but got it from a fancy dress shop. It's like, where do you get what fancy dress shops have got spider costumes for small children?
Well, quite, and it also begs the question of what is a spider costume? Do you know what I mean?
Mm,
What does it look like really?
I
Must
don't
have
really
lots
want
of
to
sort of
think about
tentacles.
it.
Well,
No, it must.
quite,
Well, not so much tentacles as legs, I suppose. That'd be an
yeah,
octopus, wouldn't it? Maybe
yes,
she was an
yes,
octopus.
would. Well, maybe, but clearly it was a successful costume. Um, it appears,
Oh,
unlike her friend's costume, who was a sheep. Apparently, that was all made at
yes.
the last minute. But there we go. But yeah, I mean, it just made me think as well of nativity plays and children's shows that I was in or children were
Yeah.
in. Did you do a lot of shows when you were little? Were you in a lot of shows?
I remember being in one when I was quite little, a Christmas
Mm,
show. So I was probably
mm.
about 3 or 4. So this is my first stage appearance, and one of the reasons why I went into writing, so I didn't have to perform again. I had one of those little drums around my neck. So the idea was that there were 4 of us banging a drum, the little drummer boy, rumpa pum pum, all that kind of thing. And then you
Mm.
took your drum off from around your neck and did the next thing, sort of grabbed a lamb or something and went into being shepherds, but I couldn't get the drum off. So
Oh,
consequently, I just continued to bang my drum through the entire nativity. So poor Mary was giving birth with a sort of demented drummer person, keeping pace with her contractions, and completely upstaged everybody else. So it was, yes, and I was quite upset at not being able to extricate myself from this ruddy drum.
oh, I'm sure
Yeah.
you would have been. Did you cry? Were you a little crying drummer girl?
I wasn't. No, no. I've
Mm.
faced it. I
You
toughed it out.
faced it
But I'm
womanfully.
sure
You faced it.
I did, or childfully, really, as I was at the time.
Yes.
I'm sure that your childhood appearances in nativity plays were a lot better than mine.
Well, I'm not sure they were, quite frankly, Janie. I mean, I do remember that the role of Mary was always coveted, and I desperately wanted to
Mm.
play. We all wanted to play Mary, even the little boys wanted to play Mary.
Mm.
But I remember I was a shepherd, and I was a king. Oh, I like being a
Oh, I
king.
was a king
Crown.
once. That was
Were you a
nice. I like
king?
being a king.
Yeah, you scored if you were a king, didn't you? It was
Yeah.
like, and I remember being an angel once, and I remember being berated by the teacher because there were several angels in this particular nativity play, and we'd obviously been given instructions to take back to mothers and grandmothers who were making these costumes that when we knelt down, that these costumes should come like an inch above the knee, so that we all looked as if we were all kind of equal. Well, I remember my grandmother who made my costume had taken it upon herself to ignore the teacher's wishes and just do her own thing. And I remember being shouted at because the length of mine was too high above my knee. I do remember
Oh my
that.
dear! So you were sort of like a
Yes,
mini skirted angel.
I probably could see my navy blue knickers. Probably not very pleasant, really, that was it,
Not
but
very angelic.
not very angelic. But no, I did get to play Mary eventually.
Oh, did you?
Marvelous. Oh yes, absolutely marvelous. So yes, but no nativity plays, and there's always the child that cries, and there's always the child that's sick, and there's all
Child that
that
wets
as well.
themselves as well.
Indeed,
That's a popular one, isn't
indeed.
it?
Yeah,
Child that drops Jesus on his head.
yeah. Indeed, and Joseph picking his nose and all that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
but we still love it, don't we?
We do.
We just still go, oh.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Turtle Doves. Turtle Doves recycle pre-loved cashmere jumpers to make beautiful accessories. Their best-selling fingerless gloves come in a large variety of colours to brighten or complement any outfit. The benefit of keeping your wrist covered throughout the day will help maintain warm, cosy fingers. Other accessories include neck warmers, loops, scarves, beanies and baby booties, all super soft and luxurious to the touch with great eco-credentials. Turtle doves, the perfect present this Christmas to keep your loved ones warm.
Yeah,
no, I remember years and years and years ago, it just reminds me, doing Shirley Valentine. I don't know if anybody out there has ever seen the play Shirley Valentine, but there's a wonderful section where Shirley describes her son Brian playing Joseph in the nativity play, and Brian takes it upon himself to go off script, and so they get to the innkeeper and says, we need a room for the night. The innkeeper said, well, I'm sorry, there ain't a room here, which is according to the story. But Brian, Shirley's son, decides to come off script. He says, but we booked. I do remember that. But we booked. And the little innkeeper, not knowing what to do with himself. I do remember. It's a brilliant story. It always brings the house down. It's a great little
that's
a great
wonderful, isn't it?
nativity story. But yeah.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Terrific.
And did you go to pantos and things?
Oh,
when
yeah, I
you,
went to
when
the
you were...
panto every year. Loved that. Loved it.
Have you got a favourite one? Favourite panto?
No, I just loved them all. I just loved the magic of it. We didn't go to theatre much, so it was just this magical thing that happened once a year, and I just knew that I absolutely adored it, and just wanted to be in the theatre forever. It was just the magic of the whole thing. Did you do the annual panto?
Yeah, we did. And I loved, it was just the excitement of it all, wasn't it? And the interaction with the characters on stage. And, you often sort of had little, I don't know, whirly, giggy, sort of flaggy things or lights that you were in the audience with and playing with. And then the actors used to come into the audience often, didn't they? And they would run around and they would do, and the kids were all screaming. No, I loved it. I loved it. I loved it.
And then, of course, you graduated to big in Christmas shows as an actor, didn't you?
Well, of course. You see, that was the next thing. Indeed, it was, in fact, my very first, or one of the very first shows that I did when I left drama school, which was in the mid-70s, was Dick Whittington pantomime at Wimbledon Theatre. And
Oh,
Jimmy, yes, near
I know
where
it
you used to
well.
live. Yeah,
Yeah.
indeed. And Jimmy Tarbuck was actually playing Dick
Oh, I see.
Whittington at the time. But I was also I was an acting ASM. And what that means is acting assistant stage manager. And in those days, I was trying to get weeks on my equity card, because in those days you had to have an equity card to work. So I wasn't particularly good at stage management, I have to say. But I was also understudying the cat. And yes. And I lived in fear and dread of the guy who was playing the cat, not being able to perform, because I would have to get into his hot, sweaty costume. He was a lovely guy, wasn't that? But, I just dreaded all that. But having thought that I got away with the role of the cat sometime later, I actually did play the cat in Dick Whittington.
Did you?
Yes, I did, at the Marlowe Theatre in Canterbury. And it was an extraordinary time. It is because I'm very small, you see, so I was a natural casting cat, as they were, for the cat. But my costume, because, theatres try and keep things as cheaply as possible, my costume was actually made by the local students of the design college.
Right.
And what they hadn't done when they made my costume was to put any air holes in the costume. And of course, you are completely enclosed in this thing with a head and everything else. And folk will know who've seen Dick Whittington that at the end of the play, there is a fight between the rat and the cat. And it's quite an energetic thing, it has to be said. And you're pretty knackered by the time you get to the end of the play anyway, because you've been, frolicking about in this costume for quite a while before that. And I just thought, one day I almost died in this. And then finally I went to the wardrobe department and said, I cannot work in this costume. I am just so hot, I'm dying. And they suddenly realised that the design students hadn't put any air holes in it at all. So there was no way for my body to breathe.
You would have been like a turkey in a roasting bag.
Absolutely. I would, I was like a tomato when I came off stage. I was so red. It was just a nightmare. So yes, Dick Whittington has pursued me. But it's a great show, actually, Dick Whittington. It's a great show. But
when you're an actor and you're in a Christmas pantomime or Christmas show or something like that, do you? Because you're performing right up to Christmas Eve, aren't you, usually?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Do
yeah,
you
yeah,
get
yeah,
to
yeah.
go home for Christmas, or?
Well, it depends where you are, really. It depends where home is and where you're actually performing and which theatre that you're performing in. A lot of time people didn't. They were so exhausted, they would just sort of, completely sleep through Christmas Day because they were so tired.
Oh,
Because it was hard. It's hard work. It still is hard work. Often you were doing 3 shows a day, so starting maybe at 10, and then you do 2. Do a matinee, and then you do an evening show. So it was fairly relentless. It has to be said, and you did get to a point where you were got your calendar and you were ticking the performances off. But it is good fun. Pantomime and is good fun. And I remember doing Charlie and the Chocolate Factory as a Christmas show one year as well. And I remember we had a terrible technical, and a tech is when you're literally working through all the technical aspects of the show. And
yeah,
normally you would do a technical in the afternoon or the day before, and then you would do a dress rehearsal,
yeah.
probably 2 dress rehearsals before you did the show. But in this particular case, we just ran out of time doing the tech, so we never ever had run the show,
Oh,
and
you're
we'd never
kidding.
ever teched the very last act. And I do remember I was playing a character called Veruca Salt, and in this particular show, what happened to Veruca Salt, because she was so vile, that she was somehow, her legs, it's very cruel, it's Roald Dahl, isn't it? But somehow she could no longer use her legs. And so what they did there, they put me in a scooter, and I used to come on stage. Somebody would drive me on this scooter with my feet in the scooter in foam, so it looked like she couldn't use her
Right.
legs. And because we hadn't done a proper tech, we actually did the curtain call. But everybody else, somebody had wheeled me on for the curtain call, but we hadn't done the exit of the curtain call, and suddenly everybody had gone but me on the stage on my
Oh no!
own, still on this scooter, thinking, what do I do
My
now? This is
God.
kind of embarrassing. And then one of the other actors must have gone into the wings, turned round, seen that I was still on there, and came and dragged me off. It was a little
Oh,
embarrassing.
Sonny,
But I do remember that we were flying by the seat of our pants on that particular show, because and the director, I do remember at the end of the show, it was a huge hit actually, but the director was so stressed out that when we got into the bar, he was lying on the floor in a drunken stupor because he was so stressed out about it all. Oh dear, but
dear.
it's good fun.
I was about to ask you who directed it, but I won't ask you that
No,
question
don't
now.
go there. Don't go there.
I mean, the other thing that's different, I suppose, as an actor, is that you don't normally have an audience which comprises quite so many children, and that must be very different to play to
Yeah,
an
it
audience of kids.
it is. It's keeping them under control. And I do remember actually going back to when I was playing the cat at the Marlow Theatre Canterbury. One of the scenes was, there used to be the famous chase often into the audience, and which everybody loved. And I remember as the cat was chasing or being chased, and I had in my hand a huge prop string of sausages. Do you remember all that? It was
Oh
all sort of
yeah.
and these kids grabbing hold of these sausages as I was trying to be yanking these sausages. I do remember that. You risk life and limb when you ran into the audience, actually. And of course, because as the cat, I had a tail as well, so that was another thing to hang on to. That was all pretty scary. I used to rather dread that. I used to rather dread the audience participation aspect of it. But no, it was good fun. I mean, you just had to keep them under control a bit, really. That was all. But it's great to look out there and the children enjoying it all so much.
Yeah.
It's really great fun. And in fact, I've actually got tickets for Mother Goose. Ian McKellen going to say and John Bishop. I'm really looking forward to that. It's had great reviews actually, so I'm really looking forward to seeing him as Dame.
That'd be lovely.
Yeah, it would be great
because he's done Dame quite a bit, hasn't he? And a good Dame is a
really
good Dame makes a panto, doesn't it? Really,
absolutely, really, really does. I always remember actually when I was doing the Wimbledon theatre show when I was understudying, we had an actor called Hugh Lloyd. Do you remember Hugh Lloyd? He was an oak. Yeah. Well,
he used to be
was
in Terry
playing
and
Dame.
June, didn't he?
That's right. And he was playing Dame, and a very fine Dame he was.
Ooh.
But one day he came on stage a little too enthusiastically, tripped and fell into the audience.
No.
Yeah. Because he did one of those fake trips, that often they do, but he just mistimed it. And the next thing we knew, we heard the terrible drums and the crashing of cymbals. And poor old Hugh was and it's a big theatre, Wimbledon Theatre, so it was quite a big drop.
It's a long drop.
Yeah, but bless his heart, he was all right. But yeah,
Does he?
You can risk life and limb.
Did he get back up again?
He did, I think.
It can't be easy because the dame costumes are so complicated and there's so
Yeah,
many of them that
yeah, yeah.
I would imagine that the main thing you want of an understudy is at the same height, the same size, because
Absolutely.
you can't adjust them, can you?
No,
If the understudy's a bit bigger or a bit smaller and has to go
no.
on.
Absolutely. And that was why I was so worried about understudying the cat at Wimbledon, as you can imagine, because there was only one costume.
Jeez.
Oh dear. But no, poor old Hugh. But no, he was okay. But he could have really, really hurt
Golly.
himself very badly. So you risk life and limb a bit when you're doing panto.
You do, don't you?
Mm,
I remember when our kids were little, I don't know if this still happens. I think Cadbury's started to sponsor some pantomime, so there would be a point in the proceedings where the dame or somebody chucked a load of chocolate bars into the audience, which I think was
yes.
a huge mistake because the focus of the children was then no longer on the stage but on
Mm,
fighting each other for a
mm,
curly whirly.
mm, mm.
Yeah,
That's true. That's true. And then, of course, eventually, what would happen? The dame often would invite children up on stage to talk to
yes,
them. Do you remember all that?
I do.
And some children were desperate to do that, weren't they? And
Yes.
say embarrassing things about the family once they got up there. Oh dear, yeah, good old panto. And of course, years ago, particularly when I was a young actor, every repertory theatre would do a Christmas show or a panto. And
Yeah.
there are pantos now, but not. And you learned an awful lot as an actor. You learned your craft a lot, actually, as a young actor doing pantomime, because so much of it was about audience participation and the interaction with the audience, and you learned a lot
Yeah.
about timing.
Yeah.
Good fun, very good fun.
Yeah, it must have been fun, and I imagine that there's also sort of camaraderie about it because you have to get on with people if you're doing 3 shows a day,
Yeah, yeah,
sort of
you do.
right over Christmas, apart from Christmas Day itself.
Yeah, you do. You do, and you work hard, you play hard in those sort of situations,
Mm.
really. And of course, often you used to get, maybe you still do, I don't know, Santas would appear, wouldn't they, sometimes in pantomime as
Yeah,
well?
you would get a Santa, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
You
often
would
you
get a
would.
Santa.
Often you would. And yeah,
Uh,
did you go and visit when you were a child? Did you go and visit Santa in
we did.
grottos anyway?
We used to
Mm,
go to Rackham's. So I grew up in Birmingham. There was a Rackham's,
mm.
and yeah, that was a big highlight for the year. Going to Santa's grotto in Rackham's. We went to Rackham's because that was like the posh. I'm saying Rackham's a lot because that was the posh. For Birmingham, that was the equivalent of Harrods, you see. So that's
Yes.
we didn't go to Lewis's, we went to Rackham. So my mother's very, very definite that people should know that that's where we'd gone. Did you do a? I mean, they're nothing like they were, are they? No Santa's grottos. Did you
Mm.
do a grotto when you were a kid?
Yeah, a bit like you going to Birmingham. We used to go to Manchester. It was a
Oh,
really big treat. We would go to Manchester. We go to Lewis's. That was a huge store,
right.
and yeah, they always did a fantastic grotto there, and elves and things like
Mhm.
that. And it was magical. It was magical,
That was
actually, wasn't
lovely,
it?
wasn't it? Yeah.
Well, how about your girls? Did they enjoy and do all that?
I think that the not so much. I think
Mm.
the Santa's grotto thing had degenerated into one slightly drunk man in a not very clean suit in the middle of the toy department by the time the
Oh
grotto had
dear.
gone.
Oh
And
dear.
certainly my younger daughter was ambivalent a bit about Santa. I remember saying to us, we used to have presents under the tree and then they would have like a stocking at the end of their bed.
Mm.
But she said, I'm really not very happy about an old man with a beard coming into my bedroom while I'm asleep. She said, do you think Santa would mind leaving my stocking presents outside the door? And when she said that, I thought that is actually a very reasonable
Mm.
request
Mm. Mm.
because we spend so much time teaching our children to be wary of strangers that it does seem very strange to then say, open up your bedroom to strange old men
Yes, yes.
who
She
you've
had a
never met
point.
before. So I think she had
Yes.
a point.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
What about your son
Mm.
Jake? Was he a Santa
Yeah.
fan?
Oh, he was very enthusiastic about that. Couldn't wait. We used to have a pillowcase at the end of the
Right.
bed that was left for Santa, and we used to have a mince pie and a glass of sherry left for him downstairs, and oh yes, went to bed very early actually on Christmas Eve as a consequence. See what Santa had possibly left. Um, no, it was always very magical, and it was always great fun. One particular Christmas I do remember. he was getting to the stage where we were thinking he's still believing, but you thought we've got to make sure that he still, believes in all this. And it had been snowing outside on Christmas Eve, which had been perfect and was rare for that to happen. And Jake, he was a very curious child. He was always asking lots of rather complicated questions about Santa. I thought, we've got to do something here to persuade him that this is really, really happening. So we decided that what we would do, we would get some flour, white flour, and we would throw it onto the kitchen floor, which was a tile floor, and we'd get some very big boots that we'd got, and we would put imprints of the boot onto the flour, so that in the morning, because that particular big present that he was having that year, was actually in the kitchen area. It was too big to sort of take anywhere else, you see. So we lured him down. He'd had open presents, and he said, "But I haven't got what you should have got." I said, "Well, maybe he just couldn't get it up the stairs. He's an old man, he's got to do a lot. Let's go and have a look downstairs, see if there's anything downstairs." And of course, we opened the kitchen door, and to his great delight, he'd see on the floor these huge imprints.
Wow.
And his little face. It was one of the best Christmas gifts I've ever had. It was wonderful. And
that's
there around the corner was the
lovely.
gift that he wanted. But yeah, we were rather proud of ourselves. We thought we'd done well that Christmas. It may,
Well
and I think
done,
it's something he
you.
does remember, actually, very,
done,
very well.
you.
We
How
really
lovely.
enjoyed that. Yeah, it was good fun. It was
And
good
you
fun.
did. You took him to Lapland, didn't you?
We
One year.
did, I'm so pleased we did that. Did you ever do that? You
No,
didn't do that with
no.
the girls. Yeah, it was great because it was a day trip, and you had to leave
Oh,
very,
was
very
it?
early in the morning. Yeah, we went from Birmingham and very early in the morning, and we got there, and it was quite magical because obviously it was very, very cold. There was lots of snow, and we had to put these outdoor clothes on, really thick clothes, and then we got in the sleigh and we were fled then into the countryside with these huskies through the snow, and then every now and again little elves would jump out from behind trees and things like that. It was really, really magical, and we just flew along on these sleighs, and then we arrived at the sort of area where Father Christmas was, which was wonderful, and there was toboggan rides, and there was all sorts of things like that, and we had a meal, and then we went to see Father Christmas. And it was terribly, terribly exciting. And then, eventually we returned home in the dark, and it was very, very magical. Got on the plane and away we went. You couldn't quite believe that you'd had that experience, but it really was worth it. It was really, really magical. I'm really glad that we did that, actually. Yeah, it
That
was
sounds
brilliant.
very special. How old was he when you did that?
I'm trying to think, as you say that, I think he was probably about 8 or 9, maybe a bit
Nice.
younger. Not sure. Maybe younger, 6, 7. I lose track a bit.
Okay.
But yeah, it was very, very magical. And I can remember he and Sue hurtling along in a toboggan because it was so icy. It was so icy. It was really icy. And in actual fact, there were some skidoos. We'd actually taken my mother with me, and my mother this is the sad part of
That's
the
right.
story. My mother fell off a skidoo and actually broke her arm or broke her shoulder, actually. Oh my God. So that was a bit of a downside to it, but we didn't know that she'd done that properly until we got home, Warwick Hospital.
Right.
But yeah, it was so icy. That was the thing, it was so very icy. But yeah.
Oh, how wonderful. Magical trip to Lapland.
Yeah.
Sort of bookended by a trip to Warwick Hospital.
It was a bit, and I can always remember when we got to Warwick Hospital, my mother was finally seen in A&E, and this doctor saying to her, well, how have you done this? How have you done it? She, well, I went to see Santa in Lapland, and he looked at her like, yes. And how many gins have you had, madam? I do remember. She did. In fairness to her, she took it in great good part. Bless her heart, actually, because she could have been really, really nasty. But anyway, that was that was the end to our Lapland adventure. It has to be said. Oh, I don't know. It was great, but I do remember. Yeah, we came home with gifts and things from Father Christmas, and we also came home with a whole load of crackers and things like that. I do remember on the plane, people were sort of fighting each other with the crackers that they'd been given. I do remember that.
So were you pulling the crackers on the plane?
We were pulling the crackers out. It was the right cracker. We were pulling the crackers on the plane. It was great.
You probably couldn't do that now, could you? I mean, we went to buy a box of crackers the other day, and we had to have our age checked because they contain explosives.
Because they don't. It really?
Yeah. So honestly, you probably wouldn't be able to have crackers on a plane anymore. So you need to treasure that memory as something that.
Indeed, I didn't know that. I didn't know. because we're a great cracker people here at home. Actually, we always tend to have crackers Christmas time.
You are completely crackers.
We are completely crackers because we like our paper hats and things like that.
You do. Christmas, whenever we come to you around Christmas time, there's always a cracker to pull.
There's a cracker. There's always a cracker. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I love the jokes because I like stupid jokes, and I love the jokes in Christmas crackers.
They're
and in
good,
fact,
aren't they?
Yeah. I think you might have a couple of jokes as well, mightn't you, from a Christmas cracker?
I could do you a Christmas cracker joke.
Oh, go on. Good, do me one.
Okay,
do us one.
I'll do you one.
Yeah. Please.
Okay, here we go.
Go on.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do Santa's little helpers learn at school? The alphabet.
That's a cracker. Okay, I got one for you now. Okay. What kind of motorbike does Santa ride? A Holly Davidson.
Oh God, that's terrible.
I love it.
Like that.
Go on.
I like that.
Have you got another one?
I have.
Go on.
I'll do you another one.
Yeah.
Why does Santa have 3 gardens?
I don't know. Why does Santa have 3 gardens?
So he can ho ho ho.
You see, I love it. I just love them. Okay, one more. Okay. What do you get if you wait for it?
I'm waiting.
Sorry, it's making me laugh already. Oh, what do you get if you cross Santa with a duck? What'd you get, Jamie?
Do you know? What? No. What do you get?
You get a Christmas quacker.
Oh God.
I think on that note, I think we better say goodbye. Happy Christmas, everyone.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Thanks for listening to our One Stiletto in the Grave podcast. If you'd like to see behind-the-scenes clips and bonus content, please visit our Facebook page, One Stiletto in the Grave podcast. And if you'd like to ask any questions, follow us on Twitter at OneStiletto65. This podcast is produced by Raggedy House Productions and the music composed by Tom Smith. See you next time!